Welcome back, Red Spotters, to our show here on Red Spotlight. I'm your host, Alexis, joined by David Francisco for another installment of our weekly TV segment series recapping the latest of Disney Plus Marvel series, Miss Marvel. Last week we discussed episode 4, and this week we'll discuss episode 5. Again, 5 of 6 episodes, in case you forgot, but do not worry, I will remind you several times tonight of why that is such a big issue for me. Anyway, we're going to talk about Miss Marvel and everything, but I do have a couple of things to say off the top, and I do apologize, David, that I do want to just go ahead and get it. I want to say this now because I'm not sure when, I think soon, but we are going to have a review for the Season 4 finale and just entirety of Season 4. Well, actually, we already have a review with David, I want to say, of the first half of Season 4 of Stranger Things. And soon, with Kyle, we are going to have a review of the finale. I do want to say this, that, look, I feel like that finale was every reason for why Stranger Things happens to be the single biggest television show on the planet, and for streaming, and may be the de facto streaming series. The level of which the Duffer Brothers are operating at, you know, with all of these wonderful characters, with these amazing actors, and with just the know-how for how to deliver a deeply satisfying story. I mean, let alone finale, but just what a triumph. I do want to say, because I stayed up I think until 4:30 in the morning to watch that damn I think it was 4 hours. No, it was a 4-hour finale, because I mean, one of them was an hour and a half, and the last episode 9 was 2.5 hours. It was absolutely amazing. There were so many moments where I literally got chills because of I mean, the climax has to be one of the best climaxes I've seen maybe ever, with how it all kind of came together. You know, that moment, one of the things that Stranger Things does best, and you called it, David, every single season, when the storylines all coalesce into one, although it happened in a way that I'm not sure any of us foresaw happening, but I think it ended up actually working better in some ways than it would have otherwise. Just so deeply emotional as well. I mean, look, it is well known throughout the industry, again, like we say with Iman Vellani, and many young actors, right? It is a well-known thing that it is difficult to cast young actors, especially if you're going to be working with them a long time. But, you know, to give all the credit in the world to, oh my goodness, all of these wonderful actors. I mean, all of the original ones had such amazing moments when you had Mike, Will, Max, Lucas, and Dustin, 11, like all of them had, and again, some of these characters had a lot bigger, you know, stories throughout this entire Stranger Things 4 than others, but they all had moments that shined from an acting standpoint that were just so wonderfully executed and just tear-jerking. And I have to say, you know, this was the goriest season of Stranger Things I think they have ever done. Just from the pure death standpoint, and there were some moments where they took it a lot farther than I ever expect they would. Like, there was a moment that happens particularly with Sadie Sink, who plays Max this season, whom I think she probably stole this season. Her character was one of the best parts of this season, and what they do with her, I particularly found was kind of horrific. It's not something I was expecting, but look, it was kind of. It reminds you of how great television can be when you have like wonderful minds behind that kind of craft everything and set it all up. And I know a lot of things happen in season 4 that kind of like retroactively go back and like, you know, because there's a lot of stuff in this season that predates the first season. And yet it all fits so well. It doesn't feel like it's like retconning anything. And it was a grand finale that, if you kind of notice in the 4 hours, it wasn't all focused on action. The action came basically at the very end with the climax, and it was all very satisfying. But what does a finale always do to close up the season? It focuses on the characters. It gives them the moments that they're needed to grow and to enrich the story. And and I know a lot of people were complaining. I guess I saw that there were like monologues left and right, and these characters are like having like many emotional moments. I'm sorry, that's what a story is supposed to have. That's what a finale is supposed to have, to bring everything to a resolution. And I think that's a perfect example of what I personally have been missing from a lot of the Disney Plus finales, particularly the Marvel Disney Plus finales, and that I'm afraid is going to be a reminder once again once the Miss Marvel finale happens next week, because I already have a pretty good prediction of how things are going to play out, and I'm not happy. I want to preface that I'm not happy with how things are going to go. That isn't to say that the episode we're discussing tonight I thought was not good. No, I'm going to make my feelings pretty clear in a minute or so, but I just wanted to get that out there that we are going to have a full breakdown of Stranger Things 4, but I honestly kind of loved it. I don't know if you wanted to get your thoughts. Again, non-spoiler, just an overview of the finale, David. You did see it, I assume.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. Because, I mean, how could you not? It's been almost a week.
Yeah. I really liked it. The only thing, though, is that I thought this was, like, the series finale. And so, like, my mind was kind of like, how are they going to...
Wait, what?
Yeah, I completely forgot there was going to be another season. But, like, yeah.
Well, I'm... Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I mean, for a while there, you could look at it as a good enough series finale. But what were the things that you were thinking? Okay, I guess that gets into spoilers. But you were okay. I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
right.
I was just gonna say, like, when we're getting to the climax of it, and I saw how much time there was left, I was kind of like, how the heck are they gonna resolve all this? Like, what's gonna happen exactly? And so it just kind of left me a bit confused for a second. But then I just went, oh, this probably wasn't the finale.
Well, the ending, finale. I think, should have given it away, that it wasn't like...
Yeah.
Because the ending is a cliffhanger.
No, I mean, not the ending, but like just everything leading up to it. So that part just kind of confused me. Either way, though, there was some great build-up to this final climax of the characters and everyone else, especially with 11. There was a particular moment with her that I just absolutely loved.
Yes.
But yeah, overall, though, still was a really, really good season. I can't wait for the next one.
Yeah, well, you're gonna have to, because the next one will be in 2024.
No.
I know, it's so frustrating. I'm willing to wait a year. 2 years, man. I mean, yeah. Anywho, I just wanted to get that out there because there's a lot of built-up thought to it of Stranger Things, and I wanted to have a comment before we actually have our big review on the podcast itself. So, moving on, in the next episode, I do want to also clarify that we are going to have reviews for Baz Luhrmann's Elvis biopic film starring Austin Butler, and we're also going to have a review for the latest Marvel movie, Thor: Love and Thunder, which we are going to see this week. Now, things have taken a turn, David. I know you and I last week were kind of like really happy about what the initial reactions were spelling out for Thor: Love and Thunder. But as usual, that happiness really turned into ash in my mouth, because here we are a week later, and the full-on reviews have been released and has left a lot to be desired for. Look, I have a sneaking suspicion, and I'm also hoping, because I have long since been a voice that really looks to discredit a lot of these critics, not because I'm that person that says, well, what do critics know? No, critics know a lot, and I have a lot of really good takes. But, like everybody else, they're not perfect, and they also have a bias, and I feel it's pretty safe to see, based on what, the pattern seems to be, no matter what happens, no matter how bad the movie is, unless for one odd reason, for a specific set of reasons, like Eternals, for example, which everybody seemingly decided, okay, that's the one we're going to crap on. again, from the critic's perspective, there is a bias in favor of, the Marvel movies. There just is. But even then, a lot of the things that they look for in Marvel movies are not what I look for in Marvel movies. So when I see things like, oh, this is a straight up comedy, and it has romance, and it has, a strong focus on Thor and Jane, and it doesn't really offer much in terms of like the grander scheme of like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Yeah, that's good. That's what I want out of these movies. I don't really care, what this movie has to offer the MCU. I could, not give a rat's ass. What I care about is that this do a good enough job of like telling a story with its character. That's all I care. And I guess that does remain to be seen, because a lot of the reviews have given a lot of compliments toward the emotion and the humor and the characters. And honestly, David, I think what we're going into is, I'm not so much bothered by the critics as I am by a lot of the stuff that I shared with you yesterday when it came to the TV spots and the new trailers that are coming out for the film that leave a lot to be desired in terms of the visual aesthetic of the movie. And you know where I'm at right now? I'm thinking we might be walking into the reverse of what ended up happening with Multiverse of Madness. And I think you and I came along in a similar line where, we kind of love the film Multiverse of Madness from a purely visual standpoint. It's just a beautiful looking movie with amazing shots and just great filmmaking on display. But as far as the script, the story, and the characters are concerned, I mean, I can quote P.L. Travers from Saving Mr. Banks. It's just empty pap. And I think with Thor: Love and Thunder, the opposite might be the true, where the characters, the story, the emotion and investment is all there, but there may be a severe lacking quality to the visuals, because, as I just alluded to, the TV spots, there was even a commercial, and I'm not even joking, there was a commercial with Tessa Thompson's Valkyrie, supposed to be like tie into the movie and everything. But it's really sad how, and I'm quoting a tweet from this, but it's pretty true, how indistinguishable the look of that commercial was from what the look of the movie was. This is a great example of when people criticize the over-commercialized quality, the factory making of the movies, and the cinematography. Because, okay, really, are you that unconcerned about the way the movie looks like, that you do not care that it practically becomes, indistinguishable from a TV commercial? Because that's the impression I'm getting again and again from all the Marvel movies. Again, the one that I feel didn't have this problem was Multiverse of Madness. And why is that the case? Because they had Sam Raimi behind the camera. That's kind of where we're at. Before I load on this tweet thread I want to read out, David, did you have any thoughts on what I've been saying so far about Thor: Love and Thunder?
No, I mean, no, I don't really have much to say. It's just, I agree with you in that these movies should focus more on character instead of the whole action of it, crossover, connection to the whole universe and everything. And it just, I mean, I think we're always going to be disappointed by what everyone says about certain movies and shows. It's just, somehow we always manage to be on the opposite end.
Every time.
Yeah.
Every time, yeah. Basically. So, yeah, I just really want a good Marvel movie. I really, really want a good Marvel movie. And a lot of the problems that, from a distance that could be holding Thor: Love and Thunder back may also be holding back Miss Marvel. And it's just beginning to, enrage me. Okay. What's next? So, let's go ahead and get into this week's episode of Miss Marvel, right? Including this episode, I think quite clearly, above and beyond, this has become the best show that Marvel Studios has produced in the Disney Plus realm. And I feel it is also easily the best series that has graced the presence of this streaming service. Because I feel like it has a clear difference in priorities than a lot of superhero stories that come out of Marvel Studios, because there is a clear focus on character development and emotion and just story that a lot of other movies and Disney Plus series of the Marvel realm have repeatedly failed to present us with. I'm 5 episodes in, and I can say, look, I love all of these characters. I love Kamala, and I love her family, Muniba, her mom. Even a lot of the other side characters, just most of them, with a glaring exception, which we'll get into again, which we have already gotten into, but for the most part, it is a wonderful cast of charismatic, characters that really are there to serve a purpose and push the story forward. And I feel like with episode 5, you really had, I love this episode, minus the end, but I did love this episode. And I do have some small issues with the overall execution of it, but everything it was going for, and for the most part, everything it executed from an emotional standpoint was a home run. And it kind of was the culmination of like the story that it was all leading up to, with, the family healing and the family moments and, Kamala saving, and all that stuff worked really, really well. Even at a moment where Kamala was trying to get through to our villain, a character who, quite frankly, I don't think has any business being here with how incompetent she's being handled. But even in that moment, when Kamala was like extending a hand to help, Iman Vellani sold that moment so very well that I felt something there. So just so wonderful, honestly. But the problem that I kept coming back to was, and I think it really was encapsulated when it just ended so abruptly, like comically too. Like a big explosion happens and then just cut to black. I know that it's ramping up toward the finale we're going to get next week, and so that's like, they have to cut it off there. Oh, because they structured this like a fucking movie, chopped up into 6 parts. And this is exactly what you get when you do that, instead of actually wanting to do a season of television. This is kind of what happens. But you also do get a feeling of it being rushed, because all of the stuff that we see here with Kamala's ancestors, their story, and then also how it ties back into Kamala's own struggles, and then also her embrace of her mom and her grandmother at the end. All of that stuff was excellent, David. The emotion, the commitment from the actors, that was honestly the stuff that makes this genre really flourish. It was my favorite part of this whole episode, and why I feel ultimately this works so much more than anything else in its competition in this genre, as far as a Disney Plus show is concerned, and why ultimately it still works for me in spite of the MCU shenanigans, if you will, that continuously plague every single project that comes out of it. When I say it was rushed, well, here's the thing. It kind of was, because it was like, well, we got to the end and we know what ultimately this is going to set up. It's going to set up a big episode-long action sequence in Jersey City with damage control. By the way, I'm at the point where I'm not caring so much about spoilers, so things may slip out here, so if you care, oh well. But anyway, apparently damage control is the big bad that Kamala Khan is going to have to be fighting in order to save her friends. And it most likely is going to look like what the Moon Knight finale looked like, what the fucking The Winter Soldier finale looked like, what the WandaVision finale looked like. It's just going to be completely action, and it'll be resolved, and that'll be that. Because when you look at this episode 5, it kind of wrapped everything up from an emotional standpoint. Like, what you have here is the resolution with Kamala and Muniba, her mom. It kind of reached its climax. The same with their grandmother. Like, it was a big reconciliation. You know, all tying up with Kamala saving her own grandmother in the past. The clandestine, which, believe me, we're gonna get to how that ended up happening. But oh yeah, the clandestine they're gone now. That seemingly wrapped itself up in a rather confusing manner, I might add, but that wrapped itself up. Okay. Well then, all right, well what's left to do here? Damage control? So I'm having a hard time just understanding why these decisions were made. In that, okay, so very clearly the clandestine were set up to be the main villains for this season. But you do nothing to really... Well, you do nothing with them. Mm-hmm. They're like, you have one scene where they're nice, then the next scene they're bad. And then they're just killing people left and right. You care nothing for them. You don't even like them. They do just annoying things left and right. And this show gave us no reason to care about why they're doing it or how they're doing it the way they're going about doing it. Okay, then I guess they're gone. And then now damage control is the main adversary for this season, which damage control is a government organization. Why are we doing this? So a lot of these emotional payoffs that we got here in episode 5 were outstanding. But like what we saw with the Stranger Things finale, these are the moments that should have been saved for the finale. So on one hand, maybe I should be thankful that we got these payoffs in the first place, because a lot of this was missing for me from Moon Knight. But this stuff really should have been saved for the finale. But maybe you can't do that when you're always so focused on just giving us a big action set piece that probably in all likelihood will not be memorable and be kind of exhausting. And yeah, maybe it'll be, I bet you it will be very fun, but then you probably won't think about it the next day after. So I'm also, and look, this isn't the biggest issue for me, because ultimately I'm very satisfied with Kamala's character and the main storyline with her family. But I don't know if we're still supposed to be confused about like how her powers work, or what the clandestine were even doing, or how that portal opens, or what these people are doing. Or the fact that the bangle can travel through time. There's some questions that I think need to be answered as to like how this even functions. From a functionality standpoint, there still seemed to be a lot of confusion going around. And I feel, again, I go back to these problems could very well have been resolved if you weren't committed to just, staying with that damned 6-episode format. And David, I'm gonna pass it off to you right now for you to get your thoughts across as to how you felt about this episode. But I do want to close my statement with these collection of tweets that I think really encapsulate how I feel. From the Disney blog. My hot take, Marvel Studios doesn't like making TV shows. Instead, they make very long movies for TV. This disappoints people who want a great superhero TV show or a new Marvel movie, but instead gets 6 episodes of something that could be better, if it knew what it was. That said, Miss Marvel is definitely worth watching 2 to 3 seasons of episodic TV with an overarching story of a teenager figuring out life and her family history would have been much better. We've been robbed of that with the existing 6-episode structure. Then we go to Emily St. James. Disney Plus's absolute refusal to let any of its big TV shows be TV shows is so ridiculous, especially in the face of The Mandalorian, its biggest success being basically the A-Team, but make it Star Wars. Miss Marvel would be a great superhero teen show. It's not hard. You want to drop Kamala into the movies at some point? Great. You can just do that. The people who haven't seen her show will figure it out. Let TV shows be TV shows. Anyway, I want to reiterate, I loved this episode. The emotional moments make the show, I think, as the greatness that it is. But you see here, ultimately, why I'm so frustrated is I can see coming a mile away that the finale is going to be a disappointment. But that's just where I'm at. David.
Okay, so I agree with you in that the emotional moments with her mom and grandma were really good. You know, I'm glad that mom finally knows. She finally believes her mom. The mom finally believes her mom about all the stories that she's told and everything. And clearly, the mom's gonna make Kamala's costume in like a day. She did that with her costume, so like I'm kind of excited about that. And so that part is really, really good. Everything else was kind of disappointing. So the backstory with the great grandma, it was pretty cool. I like building up with the love story and everything. Most of my complaints, I really have to get to spoilers of it and all that. It's just overall, I feel like we could have gotten a whole lot more from this episode, in terms of backstory. In terms of backstory, her power sets, and I don't know. I honestly, I wouldn't have minded watching a scene with her going back to the plane, going back to the U.S., going back to Jersey and everything. Like, we could have gotten a whole lot more. So,
well, I mean, speaking of going a whole lot more, even for the stuff that works the best in this episode, which is the wonderful embrace that Muniba has, realizing that her daughter is like, Miss Marvel, or Nightlight, as they keep calling her hilariously. But I think if you would, I don't even think you even needed another episode. I mean, this was so short. Just spend more money and add on to the runtime. But have a scene where the grandmother literally just tells Muniba, these things are true, Beta, whatever, this is what I've been telling you. Your daughter has the bangle and she's activated the powers. Give us a moment instead of just jumping from one to the next, and give us a scene where we see Muniba processing this entire time her daughter has been the superhero. You could have given us that, but you didn't. You seemingly felt like, oh well, we don't have time. We gotta get this ball rolling. And again, this is I think this is an example of why it feels kind of rushed.
Yeah, and especially because this whole time in the show, she kept the mom kept talking to Kamala, but oh, this isn't you. Why are you doing all this stuff? I feel like she could have been a little bit more bothered, but the fact that she was the Nightlight person and all that, and could have gone deeper into conversation. Hey, this is kind of what we have to do, And I honestly, this could have been the connection that people wanted to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, brain about hey, they are heroes in this world. They're people with powers, and you're be thankful that your daughter wants to be one of the heroes, or something like that.
Exactly right. Again, I would have preferred a more, a deeper conversation about why she's doing this and how she feels about her daughter doing this. I get the fact that she's ultimately cool with it. Of course, that's where I want her to be. But there is, for however wonderful as that scene was, and ultimately what mattered to her in that moment was like her daughter was safe. Considering how much, we have already seen, her and her aversion to this entire superpowers and everything, it did come off as, really, you're going to be this cool about it? Like, I would expect at least some resistance. Mm-hmm. But I guess we didn't have time for that.
I mean, hopefully next episode they'll have a deeper conversation. I don't know, but I kind of doubt it.
Oh man, this is anyway. Yeah. You said that everything else was disappointing. What else disappointed you?
I have to get to spoilers for that, I think.
Okay, we'll get into it then. I do want to say, I know we've already been like bad mouthing the episode. I do want to praise the VFX. The powers looked really great. Like really believable. And I also want to praise because, these shows get accused unfairly so of being cheap, with the sets that they've had. And I know some people like expect like these to look like the movies and everything, which is hilarious because a lot of the Marvel films lately have looked cheap or cheaper than the shows themselves. Mm-hmm. But with here, you see none of that. Like the recreation of the partition and the train station with all those people was amazing. Mm-hmm. Like the staging of that was so like wonderfully executed. Like I would really have a hard time seeing anyone like call that cheap. So again, this is a rare compliment, but the VFX and the sets, and the money they spent to get those sets looking lively, good job, Marvel. I can finally say that for you doing that, the bare minimum there, but thank you for that. All right, let's go ahead and get into this episode. So we start off with an MCU intro to the past, into Partition. And we start off with Aisha, who is the great grandmother, the Aisha who we have not gotten too much information out of. So David, mm-hmm. Here we go.
Basically, it just starts off with her running away from some British soldier. She ends up killing him, I guess. Winds up in this village where she meets this guy who's giving the speech to people about, getting freedom from getting back to country and all that. I guess a part of her does get interested in it, but ultimately she wants to keep to herself. Later on, that same guy goes up to her, tells her, "Hey, got a place here. We got food, got a bed. Just come over whenever you want." And she does. He offers her food and everything. And when he offered her the food, I was like, "Is that a quesadilla?" I don't know.
It looked like that, didn't it?
Yeah, it really looked like it. Yeah, but I forgot what he called it. I wonder what it is though. I should look it up. But yeah, basically he was just kind of like getting her to talk and everything, and I guess he was kind of like putting the moves on her or something. I don't know. At least it seemed like it until that point, and it worked. She tells his name and everything, and you can tell that she's very interested in him. Then, cut to later on, next scene, and she's pregnant, probably married to him and everything. Honestly, like it was so short, super fast, but I honestly believe that they did like each other, and she did find something interesting mm-hmm. about him.
Yeah.
And he does seem like a good guy. He didn't. We find out this later on, but I think you can tell right away that he doesn't really care. Whatever's going on with her, he didn't really care much. He just mm-hmm. kind of just stayed together for whatever reason. Then finally, she was given birth. She must, I don't know how old the baby is. She might be like a year old, who knows. But that's when she sees, who's that lady? The villain, I guess, outside her house, and goes up to her turns out, I guess she was running away from them, or like her whole group. Which I don't think they went into as to why.
I think what the implication was is, remember that scene a few episodes back where it opens up with the clandestine, Aisha with them, finding the bangle, and then they get separated. I think what happens is when we begin this episode, Aisha is lost, and with every intention of finding, her group, but then she kind of falls in love and she stays put. And then after years and years, they find her.
Oh, okay. So it's just, I guess she just stayed put, hoping they would find her or something. Who knows?
Well, I mean, I think that was maybe what she was feeling initially, but then you see the concern.
Yeah.
Ultimately, because she knows what it would take to go back home, but the problem is circumstances have changed. Now she has a family. Now she has a new home, and she knows the clandestine. Hilariously enough, she knew how cutthroat they'd be, even to her, who's one of them.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, basically the villain tells her like, "All right, let's go home now." In no time, and then that was when she decides that we should leave India, just go to Pakistan, and yeah, so they pack up, they head off. There's just a bit of tension between her and her husband, but finally she gives her daughter to the husband, telling her like, you guys gotta go ahead of me, we gotta go ahead without me and everything. And again, I think this is really the moment where I did like them both together a lot. This is where she mentions like, you never pressed me about my past, and he's like, because I never cared, you wanted to stay here with me, that's all that mattered. Which again, really nice moment, honestly. So yeah, that's when she gives the bangle to her daughter, and that's how she held on to it. So they head off. The family heads off. She goes back, and that's when she meets the villain again. She's like, "What the fuck is wrong with you? Like, you're just gonna leave us? Like, we want to go home." And the villain stabs her. So
again, just like hold on, David. I just, why the fuck is she so cutthroat? Like, she just, like, murders people left and right. And, like, was the decision from these people writing the show was, oh, yeah, she's just bad guy, so we'll just write her as bad guy. Like, yeah. I'd like to see why she's that fucking cutthroat to stab Aisha, literally, in the front.
You know what they should have done? It was when she was talking to Kamala, telling her, like, what they wanted to do with the bangle and all that. And I think she should have brought up like, hey, this is your home, telling her like, oh, this is how it looks like, this is, kind of like give her more information about where they're actually from and make it seem like she really misses it. Then at least we would have been like, okay, it makes sense why she's so ruthless in wanting to go home. Just we need more time with the villains, honestly. It's really it. We have like a whole lot of time with the family, which is great, which is, I was thinking of this for a while, like, this isn't a superhero show, this is a family show, honestly. Yeah, there's some action scenes and all that, but I just don't see it as a superhero show, honestly. But yeah, so Aisha is basically dying and all that, and as she's saying that, she says, what is it? What you seek will find you, or something like that. I can't remember the phrase. But that somehow
what you seek is seeking you?
Yeah, what you seek is seeking. Okay, what's that? And that somehow activates the bangle, which I do have a theory on that. I think so I'm gonna skip ahead, but later on with the villain, she's trying to close the portal to their world. And the last thing she does is, she says Kamran, like she's thinking of him. And then my guess is that her essence, her soul, the part of her that is full jinn, goes into Kamran. And so I think for her, and I think for Aisha, that same thing happened to her as she was dying, only it wasn't towards her daughter, it was towards the bracelet, because I mean maybe that's kind of what like powered up her powers or something like that, gave her powers basically.
Okay. And
so I don't know how that time travels, but like I guess that's why the powers activated on Kamala, because she's not even a half oh my god, what the fuck are their names? Like their kind.
Jin?
Yeah, that. But like, what was the other one? Clandestine. Oh my god. She's not even half clandestine. So as to how she even gets powers, who knows? But I think it's because Aisha's essence went into the bangle and all that. That's just my huge theory. But yeah. So, but that causes the bangle to open a rift in time, and that's when we see Kamala when she shows up. She finds Aisha. She's kind of like, "We gotta get you some help," but she goes, "No, you gotta get my daughter to the train and everything." And yeah, basically, she was time traveling. This wasn't a vision. She is going to affect the space that she is around and all that. Yeah, so she finds her. She realizes, oh, this is part of my complaint. So, yeah, she finds her grandma. She's trying to get through all the crowd, but it's like super cramped. There's people everywhere. So that's when she creates the trail of stars that her grandma has mentioned many times. And she gets back to her dad. Just my one complaint though is that as good as they made it look super cramped and everything, I just kind of wish there was more of a struggle for her to get to her grandma back to her dad and everything. That was just mainly my one complaint, because like everything just kind of like worked itself out in a way. That's my big complaint on that scene. Just kind of wish there was more of a struggle or something, trying to get her grandma to the train. But yeah,
okay.
But yeah, basically she realized that it was her all along that got her grandma to the train, and that takes her back in time, back to her present.
And then the portal opens up. Why does it kill the clandestine?
I don't.
What happened there?
I have no idea.
I mean, I will say it is kind of funny how the first one was like, "We can go home."
Yeah.
Then she touches it and she fucking just turns to stone and dies.
Yeah.
I don't know what was the point of, from the VFX standpoint, including the skeleton, like, because like the skin falls up, but then the skeleton's still intact, and then it also falls through. Like, I'm not sure I get why, but that's a choice. Kind of came off a little bit goofy, which is why I was just laughing when that happened.
Yeah.
Also, I didn't like her, so it was funny. When shitty characters just die off like that.
Yeah, I more so laughed when the villain realized what happened, and she's just like, "Oh shit, what am I supposed to do now?" Like, that's kind of her reaction. It was funny.
Yeah. It's really unclear what happened or why it happened, and I feel I don't know. I mean, I guess that's going to be answered next week, but also, why would you kill them off now? Like, really? This is the resolution for the clandestine? Like, even that was so uninteresting and mishandled, I feel. And then at the last moment, what's her name? Evelyn? The last one that was standing there. Kamran's mom.
I've just been calling her the villain.
The villain? Okay, so anyway. Well, is she? Because she's dead now. Anyway. Or at least she was. At the last moment, she's like, she realizes, oh, that's right, I have a son, I left him. What the fuck do you care, lady? Like, you clearly have no regard for him. You've shown no regard for him the entire time. Now you're going to be like, look, I don't mind the moments where the bad guy has like, oh, a realization and they do one last good act. Fine, whatever. But at least make it believable.
Mm-hmm.
You've shown us no moment where she gives a single fuck about her son versus herself. She left him basically to be trapped in this dimension for her to go cross the other side. Why would you give a fuck?
Mm-hmm.
And then sacrifice yourself? Like, again, the idea of these moments don't bother me. It's the execution of it that kind of makes the whole thing not work because it's not believable in the least. And then her essence finds a comrade, and then I guess he gets powers. Okay, whatever. Anywho, come in, the parents, and they're like, oh my God, was that you? And, they're hugging each other, and then Kamala gives her grandmother a photo of her as a baby and then her two parents, and it gets emotional. And that was really, really good. Mm-hmm. But then she hopscotches away to go deal with the remainder of the Red Daggers. Yeah. Is that what they're called? Mm-hmm. And yeah, the Red Daggers, it's amazing how little they got in the show.
Yeah.
Like, it just came in and out of the story, and I guess that was that.
Mm-hmm.
Just like so rushed. So little.
Yeah. It's just... I feel like they just don't want to give out too much because maybe they want to put it in the Marvels movie, or maybe they'll want to make a Miss Marvel movie now after this, and then that's when they'll get deep into all of the lore between her stuff. And so I think that's part of the reason why there's so very little material in this show.
So you're saying is the reason for this project having a creative, suffering creatively, shall we say, is because of something else almost entirely unrelated on the side, needing the pieces to move in this direction.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of the same thing that always happens is these individual stories are, subservient to the larger cinematic universe. And so by necessity, they have to suffer from a creative standpoint to serve the whole.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Is the reason for why these things are not as good as they could be.
Yeah, basically, which it's a dumb idea, not because, you're making this material not the best. It's just more so you don't have them forever. Like, I feel like, Chadwick Boseman is the best example. Honestly, they could have made 10 movies with him, but that's not anymore. And any of these actors at one point could want to quit acting. That's actually that happened almost a lot of times with Chris Evans. He's mentioned before in interviews, he always says okay, this is the last movie I'm gonna do, just because he can't deal with the anxiety of it and everything. And so I feel like obviously don't put every single thing, but just give your writers enough so that they can make a complete and good story. And so yeah, especially when some of these actors they're getting up in age. I think who was it? Drax. Well, the guy who plays Drax, he's
Dave Bautista.
I think it was him that was like, I'm getting old. I don't want to keep exercising. I don't want to have these muscles. I can't keep up with these muscles, basically, is what he's saying. And so it's just a really dumb idea that they can't, you can put this in, but you can't put, it's just, well, give us a little sliver of it, and that's what you get. And so, yeah, that's just annoying, honestly, with a lot of these Marvel stuff coming out. Anyway.
Where do we go from here?
Yeah, basically, you get that resolution with the villains and the mom and the grandma, and then they're back home. and they're just talking a little bit about the past. Basically, was it Kamala's mom? They told Kamala the story of when her mom followed Bon Jovi all around, basically.
Yeah.
And she was just like, "What the heck? You did that?" And that just kind of led to this another family moment where Kamala's mom was just kind of like, "I can't let you go yet, as much as you keep sort of running away in a sense. I'm not gonna let you go." And yeah, and I think she also kind of Kamala's mom apologizes to her mom, basically saying like, "I should have paid attention to you when you said this. I just had trouble believing, but basically she's paying attention now and she believes her." And that just got them closer together. Again, this is the honestly the best moment in the whole episode. And we said in the beginning, we love the family moments. This is a family show. And then now we're back in Jersey. Kamran finds Bruno and asks him for his help. The whole thing's kind of awkward between the two. He doesn't really know how to talk to Bruno and everything. Bruno seems kind of annoyed that he's here and everything. I did like the moment though where he's just like, "You know what? Let's just start all over. Hey, I'm Kamran." It's like, "Hey, I'm Bruno," and he's just like, "Oh shit, dude! I really thought your name was Brian."
Oh my god, man! Wow.
It was actually kind of funny because I actually did think that he was calling him Brian on purpose, but I guess not.
Yeah, me too. I was convinced.
Yeah. And then and then there was kind of a sad moment, where Bruno was kind of like, "Dude, your mom left you. Like, what made you think she's gonna come back?" And he's kind of like, "No, she'll come back," which that does kind of suck because he did believe her. I mean, I don't know why he would, but I guess maybe he just thought that she'll do the right thing in the end or something. I don't know. But yeah, now they were quickly trying to come up with a plan, hoping he can get away from damage control. But a drone shows up. Kamran attacks it and sends like a missile towards Bruno's shop. And yeah, abrupt ending. Oh, he also says it's like, "Oh, you have powers," and then it cuts.
Yeah. Is the Department of Damage Control not under the jurisdiction of the U.S. government? Because what kind of buffoons are they to just open fire on a civilian building?
I think that was an accident. That was because of Kamran shooting it, wasn't it?
No, they were aiming to shoot.
Oh, okay. Mm.
I think they already shot, and then Kamran deflected it.
Okay.
Like, what are these people?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It just seems a bit unrealistic. Like, I mean, if you're gonna have damage control in this show, are you trying to make them come off as, negligent? As most cops are, in their overuse of violence, or are you trying? Because in some ways they come off kind of nefarious. Is that the intent for this, or what? And then of course we don't know because then it just cuts to black.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, maybe we'll just. I mean, I think most of the next episode is just going to be focused on damage control, and then hopefully they can provide some background as to why they're so adamant on getting.
Yeah, damage control. By the way, he has barely been in the show.
Yeah,
they've barely been in the show.
Mm-hmm.
And yet they somehow get the limelight for the finale. I truly do not understand these decisions.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, that's all I have to say about this week. Anything you have to say that's left?
We never brought it up, but the credits in the show, they always add a song in the end. I usually just skip the credits, hopefully to see if there's an after credits and all that. But this time I kind of like paid attention to it. I have no idea what the lyrics were saying, but it sounded really nice. And this is actually like my favorite song of the show. I mean, it was just kind of interesting. And I finally
the music has been amazing in this show.
Oh, for sure. In terms of the songs and the score and everything, I really did love the part in the end in the 4th episode. You know, like she's on top of the train and just kind of like builds up intensity and all that.
Yeah.
It was really, really good. But then also I also paid attention to the credits and what they were showing. I love that they were showing, I don't know if it was Jersey or Pakistan. I think it might have been Pakistan because she's over there. But you know, I love that they're putting the artwork from the comics and I think from her culture in it. It made it seem so nice.
Yeah, that's true. All right, well, I guess we'll see how next week goes. Thank you so much for listening. Stay under our spotlight for more podcasts and more, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.